Hey, good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning,
Morning.
Chris.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning, everybody.
Brian.
Oh, I got to get my video on.
All right.
Not having a good hair day, but I'm okay.
But you got a haircut, we can tell.
I did get a hair. I
You
got a
did get a
trim yesterday.
haircut.
I also
Very
got a
handsome.
shave
Oh, there you
yesterday
are.
too, which was
Yeah.
very good.
For the Met Gala when you were there, no doubt.
Yeah, I was wearing that black strapless thing. It looked really good on me.
And the $16,000 Tiffany tie.
Yeah, exactly.
As you.
Exactly. So we have a great mix here today, Chris, of
Yeah.
I think we've got 28 no, 30, 38 accelerators.
Um, Might be more than that.
Yeah, and then we had one sign up today from the outside. I think we have 46 folks from the outside as well. So this is going to be a lively group
Yeah.
of both. I don't know of the outsiders who is a Gene Schwartz groupie, a Gene Schwartz student, but you don't have to be here. And the one people who are part of Accelerator are by nature Gene Schwartz students because I force it into them, and you force it into them, Chris. Um, so they've been intravenously fed Gene Schwartz for the last 6 years if they've been in Titans. So really looking forward to this boot camp.
I am too. This is the first one we've done since you know, all the different AI tools have put out, their deep research. And so there's and I know we got some people here who've gone through past boot camp. So the structure, the content is a lot of it, most of it is the same, but this would be the first time we've added some different prompts that you can use to actually help complete the exercises. And I've been using them on a market that I'm researching. I'll share more about that in a little bit, but yeah, I'm excited to share some of these new tools that I've been playing around with and get your feedback on them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make the case that Gene Schwartz invented AI, but you know, if he was alive today, I think he'd be digging it. And
Hmm.
so we have to dig it too. Um and you know what? We're open to, input from the folks from the boot campers on stuff that they see that we don't see.
Yeah.
Um because but we're playing with it on a regular basis because you know, I mean, I'll maintain hopefully till the day I die, which may be coming sooner than later, but because I'm old. But the idea that you know that copywriters and marketers are never going to be replaced by AI, but AI is such an important part of everything we do, and to make sure that, we're implementing it where we can with and still inserting the human touch is something that I'm going to believe until I don't believe it. Um, and look, we may be proven wrong on that. Maybe the bots will take over the earth, but I'm not hoping for that. But I am hoping for the bots to help us more and more every day, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it too. I mean, I mean, at least right now, I mean, yeah, like you say, maybe it's certainly the rate of progress that AI is making. It's not out of the realm of possibility that it's just, you know, taking over more and more. But it's the way I use it personally is like having a junior copywriter on the team, and it helps with speed of ideation, speed of implementation. Um, it's a pretty incredible time to be alive.
Yeah, it is. It is. Best time in the history of the world to be a marketer, a copywriter, or probably a human being. So,
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we want to just dive in.
yeah, let's do it. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
All
Anybody
right.
have any opening statement or anything that they are eager to? Well, I don't want to take too long here. I just want to get get a sense of the room. It's a really, I'm just looking, the people who've had their screen on. I'm not gonna, we're not gonna force people to keep their video on, but keeping your video on does help both the presenters and when folks share. So I encourage you to keep your video on. If you're having a really bad hair day, I understand, but um, would hope that many of you will put your screen on. And we're we have an agenda, we have a curriculum, but there's a lot of jazz here too, because this is a very deep, profound book that has a lot of tentacles, and we find more and more every time we do the boot camp. This is our eighth boot camp, by the way, and each one is better than the one before. Just because we're, reiterating or iterating more and more based on the one before. Um, and as Chris said, now we're incorporating a lot of, AI things into the research that we want people to do in their homework and things like that. So, and we're really open to ideas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get this, let's desktop too. All right. Is everybody seeing the main slide? Awesome. You guys.
Yep, we got it, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you. So while on my end, while the presentation is going, I'm not going to be able to keep track or tabs or anything on the chat. Brian will be
Yeah, I'll
monitoring that
try
if
a little
there's
bit, but I'm going to be paying attention. I'm here to learn too. So.
yeah, but we'll have time at the end for conversation and questions. But the way that I always like to uh, kick off these boot camps is we're talking about breakthrough advertising, been around since 1966. I mean, there just aren't that many books about marketing, and I mean, it's not just about marketing, but on this topic, they have that kind of staying power. And I think one of the things that's really unique with having somebody like Brian on the call is that he actually worked closely with Gene, knew him very well during his time at Boardroom, and worked with him. Gene had his own um, publishing company, Instant Improvement, and Brian. And I'm teeing you up here to talk about Gene, Brian,
Okay.
I guess with that uniqueness of you having worked so closely with Gene, I'd love it if you could just share a little bit about like, what was he like, but as a person, as a human, he's somebody that mentored you early in your career, and so I just think that would be a cool thing for you to share with everybody as we dive into the first chapter here on understanding mass desire.
Yeah, I mean he was a Renaissance man in many ways. He read everything. He there's a quote that I use often in my blog when I talk about him that, he says, and we'll talk about this today about mass desire because, he said, if you're not spending time out there with your audience and seeing what's happening in the world, you're finished basically, and especially in your own market. So, we're going to talk about market makers today. We're going to talk about how the copywriter doesn't create desire, that the desire is already out there. And Gene lived that. I mean, he basically, was not, do as I say, not do as I do. He said, do as I say, and this is how I do it as well. And that's what I'm not like that. I mean, I wish I was more like that. I'm very much, do as I say and then I don't do it myself. And I think more people are moved to that area. So Gene was very, very consistent as a human being in terms of how he lived his life. Um, he did become a mentor, and he actually he helped me create the concept of that we don't choose our mentors choose us, which I think, and the people who are on this call from Accelerator already know this, but those who aren't, I think it's worth sharing because the idea of having mentors doesn't just happen by magic. It's that, I get emails not every day, but every week from someone that says, Brian, will you be my mentor? And I try to be polite about that, saying it's not how it works. Um, because, it takes the mentor has to find the right mentees. And so my story with Gene was that, as Chris said, he had his own publishing company, Instant Improvement, small but mighty. He had these little books that he sold, The Tao of Sexology and How to Rub Your Stomach Away, mostly Eastern medicine, funky stuff. I mean, he wrote funky copy for it too. And so he needed lists. And so, he teamed up with my company, Boardroom, and Rodale Press, and we'll talk about that later on. But he basically saw that, the idea of getting lists and names for his services as a copywriter was worth more than just getting paid for copy, which to me just says who Gene Schwartz was in a nutshell. I mean, he was a multimillionaire. So it wasn't because he didn't need the money. It's because he knew the value of the marketing space and how to, barter his services and his skills and his creativity for the asset that he needed most, which were the two biggest health lists in the world, Boardroom and Rodale at the time. We had the biggest book buyer lists of health book buyers, and he was selling health books. So that's a little, little peephole into who Gene was. We'll be talking a lot more about Gene and who he was, and so when he had his instant improvement company, I ended up looking at his list plan one day for health lists. He was mailing my list, Boardroom. He was mailing Rodale's list, and I saw the list he was mailing, and they were either the wrong lists or the wrong selections because I knew every list to mail. That was I didn't know much at the time, but I knew lists, and that was my thing at the time. This is in the mid to late 1980s, early 1990s. And so I basically said to Gene, let me do a list plan for you. I mean, I wasn't going to charge him, of course. And I just did it for him. And, you know, that was the thing that endeared me to him. And, he became my mentor. I didn't choose him, he chose me. And I think just the lesson is everybody has superpowers. Everybody in this boot camp right now, you all have something that you can offer the world. You all have something that, is your genius. And I think it's super important to share that as often as you can, because you never know what's going to come back to you. And even if it's nothing, you still should share it. That's what I wrote about in my book, Over Deliver, the 100-0 concept. And when you share 100-0 and not look for quid pro quos and 50-50s, that's how you get to be chosen. That's when your mentors choose you. That's when you get the most out of the, especially and we're just talking about marketing now, but it's true in life. But we'll keep it to marketing. Finding the best of the best to work with you, and you work with the best. It's not magic. You just have to give 100-0 of what you've got, and we all don't have everything, and we know that. So Gene had almost everything, and and I'll be talking a lot about him during the boot camp, but I just wanted to give a little glimpse into, who he was, and he was special. He really was. And, to me, I don't think I realized how what an amazing situation I was in sitting at lunch with him on a monthly basis during, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years, however long it was. And it's come back to me to today. People say, how did you get the rights to breakthrough advertising? Well, he chose me as a mentee. He trusted me when he passed away. His wife Barbara knew that I was the only person she trusted with the book. It was as simple as that. It didn't happen by magic. It was over decades. So, becoming knowing, liking, and trusting doesn't happen overnight. And Yeah. I mean, anything else I
Mm.
should share now, Chris, or you want to just move on?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I don't the thing I was thinking about too was how, and you mentioned he was a Renaissance man and had this massive art collection, and
Mm.
even in his obituary, like his success as a marketer, like that was not the main thing. It talked
It
about
was a
him as
paragraph. It was a big obituary in the New York Times. There was one paragraph about him as a copywriter. Didn't even mention he wrote breakthrough advertising. Um, and the whole thing was about his art collection. He and his wife Barbara discovered tons of modern artists, and going to his house for lunch on a monthly basis, it was like going to a museum with a new exhibit every month. They'd move paintings out and they'd move paintings in. So I got an art lesson in addition to a marketing and copywriting lesson. But yeah, that was really special, and that's when he said, art, the quote is sort of like he has a quote that says, art imbues everything that's, wonderful in the world, and the art, just observing, and I call it copywriting by walking around. I mean that he lived that, and he was,
Mhm.
he basically, as I said, he he uh he didn't just practice what he preached. He preached it, and he 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 lived what he preached. Um, and yeah, it's like he loved that. He really had a zest for life too. He really did. And he had a stroke. One of the other things about Gene, he had a stroke sometime, I forget the year, but when he had a stroke, his right side was basically paralyzed. Um, so he could lift his arm, and if you shook his hand, it was like kind of a sponge, sort of. And he learned to type on a typewriter with his left hand by hunting and pecking with one finger. And his output didn't diminish. Just shows you, what kind of perseverance he had. Um, and I thought about him when I had my stroke in 2019, and I didn't become paralyzed, but I thought, I used him as inspiration to get back on the horse, because he didn't just get back on the horse, he just didn't stop. He was nonstop.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Brian. I just think I think it's a fun thing to connect to, like the person of Gene, and it's we all know. I imagine most of us know about him mainly through his work through Breakthrough Advertising, maybe the Brilliance Breakthrough if people have picked that book up, and he wrote some others. But yeah, I just always like to start these with your experience with him and his family, and Barbara is still alive and well, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
She's astounded. Every time I send her a royalty check, I send her royalty checks twice a year. She is just amazed, the appetite for Gene's work today. And the appetite right now, it's about, I think we've sold, of the Titans marketing edition of Breakthrough Advertising, we've sold somewhere around 15,000 copies, in over 75 countries. So, and a lot of people on this call are evidence of that. There are a lot of people on this call from all over the world, and she can't believe that. Like it's just the thrill every time I send her a royalty check and she says, Gene's more popular dead than alive. I said, well, he's being remembered, and that's what counts, because as they say in the movie Coco, if you've seen it, you don't experience a final death until you're not remembered. And Gene is remembered through his work and through, what we're continuing here with the boot camp, and just extending his work to a new generation of marketers, copywriters, entrepreneurs. Um, and it really is kind of a mission for Chris and I, because, we are, I take being a shepherd of Gene's work very seriously.
yeah, yeah, same here. Well, thank you, Brian. I'm gonna move on. I want to introduce myself to folks because they you all came, you're either on Brian's list or maybe you saw one of the ads that we were running to promote this boot camp, or you know who Brian is, but you probably don't know me. And I'm going to be along with Brian, but I'm going to be mainly teaching this curriculum. As Brian said, this is the eighth one. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on me. I've been working with Brian since around 2013. We first met when he was a guest on a podcast that I had it was one of my very first clients. I was still working in the corporate world. And so I got to meet this guy, Brian Kurtz. We hit it off, and then it was about the time that he was leaving Boardroom, and we just kept working together. And all these years later, we've built the Titans community and things like Titans Accelerator and this boot camp, and bringing, introducing breakthrough advertising and Gene to more people. So it's been an over 10-year journey. And every time we run these boot camps, I love just seeing the interest and how many people show up. But my just a little bit of my story. So I was at a Fortune 100 company for many years, working in marketing. It's where I met Brian. I was doing, consulting on the side, trying to figure a way to get out of that environment after several years. And the way that I found my way out is when I uh, discovered this direct response marketing somewhere in 2011. And I live in Nashville. I came here. I'm a songwriter, and I for the first early 2000s, like songwriting is what I did. I did it for several years, and there's a great similarity between the process of writing sales copy and writing songs. Songs you could say are a little more challenging because you've got to fit everything like into a tight package. And so you've got more room to explore with writing sales material and things like that. But at the core of it, it's all about, finding a story, finding a hook to bring people into that story, and then keeping their attention. And so I just immediately connected with the copywriting and psychology aspect of direct response. And a few years after being introduced, I met Brian, and it was kind of off to the races. But that, learning that skill and that interest for me, I credit with a big reason why I was able to, kind of find my way out of the corporate environment. And since then, I mean, I've worked with uh, a whole bunch of different niches in the survival space, selling solar generators and food, and selling alternative health products, e-commerce software. Now predominantly I'm more in like the business education market with things we're doing with Titans. I've got a couple other clients that I work with, and it's been it's been what's the word I'm looking for? Like a very diverse. I'm thankful that I've been able to work in uh, so many different niches and markets, and just kind of get like I say, just a diverse experience in selling to different different consumers. And it's mostly been direct to consumer. And so a few years ago, Brian and I developed this mentorship program, Titans Accelerator, that a lot of accelerators on the calls now. As part of their membership, they get to attend these boot camps at no additional cost. And so it's awesome to see every time we run these people attending multiple times. And so that's a good feeling. And then more recently, we've got this boot camp. This is our eighth one, but also wrote a study guide for breakthrough advertising, because one of the things, and you probably saw this in the marketing for the boot camp, the piece of feedback we hear constantly from people who buy breakthrough advertising was always, well, I started to read it, but I put it down. It was a dense book. It's hard to understand. And Teresa Pantanella, who's on the call, she started in Titans Accelerator, breakthrough advertising study group several years ago. And when Brian and I saw sort of the high interest in that, we started thinking, okay, well, there's the market's telling us something. Let's see if we can put together uh, something that would go a little bit deeper in the book, and also just uh, help our customers get more from the book in terms of implementation, because a book that sits on your shelf is no good, unless you actually dust it off and figure out how to squeeze as much juice from it as you can. And so um, we started these boot camps. We wrote Breakthrough Advertising Mastery. I'm sharing this because Ken McCarthy, he's one of my personal heroes. I was first introduced to him right before the big Titans of Direct Response event in 2014. And when Breakthrough Advertising Mastery came out, which I know most of you have, a lot of you took the digital version when you purchased the boot camp. But he sent this note to me, and that I share it. It's something I'm proud of, and to get this compliment from Ken. Uh, I'm not great about tooting my own horn. I'm uncomfortable with that, but Ken is a hero of mine, and so I like sharing this with you all who have an affinity for Gene and his work as well. So that's my introduction of who I am, kind of how Brian and I have been working together for several years, and I want to now kind of jump into uh, sort of the meat of this presentation today. And I want to start with just helping you, if you don't already know, just how Breakthrough Advertising is structured. So it's broken up into two parts, and part one is about the first 68 pages. It's called the basic strategy of persuasion, and this is where Gene is teaching you how to think like a market maker. Somebody who's able to look into a market, spot the different desires, find the dominant desire that creates the market. We're going to talk about that today, and then develop that market over time through the ways that you interact with them, with your marketing and the messages you put out. Um, it also is where you get these foundational concepts, where you're looking at things like the levels of awareness, stages of marketing sophistication, mass desire, how to channel that desire to your offer. And the focus of part one is really about how do we get the attention of the people that we want to serve through our products and offerings. And then in part two is a lot more tactical. So, part one kind of sets the foundation, the principles of the things that I just mentioned. And then part two is sort of the application. Okay, once you know how to capture attention, like here are different ideas and techniques that you can use to deepen that relationship and take your prospect further down the buying journey. So, this is like what do you do once you've got them hooked? And it builds on the concepts of part one. And so that's how the book is structured. How this boot camp is structured is we're really focusing on those foundational concepts in part one. Because once you understand those and once you know how to apply those, everything else in breakthrough advertising and everything else you do in your career, even apart from breakthrough advertising, kind of we see it as being built off of understanding how people make buying decisions, what their desires are that motivate them to make those buying decisions, and how we can how we can harness those desires and redirect them to our offer. So that's where our focus is going to be for the boot camp, is really how to apply part one into your business. Uh, and this is just basically what I said before. You write anything, you have to understand the mass desires, the states of awareness, the stages of marketing or market sophistication in the market. And a big part of that too is we'll go in is when you're kind of diving into the desire, the mass desire that somebody has. It's really trying to look at what they say on the surface of what they want, and dig deeper, like what's motivating them to want to make this change in their life, whether it's they're wanting to lose weight, improve flexibility, make more money, whatever it is. Like there's something in their mind, whether they're consciously saying it or subconsciously or just not even aware of it. There's something that's driving them to want to achieve that thing. And a lot of it comes down to understanding that we're all humans and we all have these emotions and things kind of get messy. And we always say that, the people on your list that, or Brian says all the time, lists are people too. And so part of what you're going to get from, especially today, but throughout the whole boot camp is just really seeing your market as individual people with their own hopes and dreams, their own families, their own goals, and sort of taking this approach of, how can we show up and help them achieve those goals, and provide enough value that they're willing to, pay us for that. So
Chris, can I share something?
Yeah,
Put
please.
put that slide back. Go back one.
Yeah.
So just a couple of quick things. When those of you who have my book Over Deliver, not that I've ever invented anything because I haven't, and not that but I've adapted a lot in Over Deliver from Breakthrough Advertising. And one of the things that I realized recently that I adapted, maybe not directly, but indirectly, was the 41-39-20 rule, which I talk about in the chapter on RFM and list building. And lists are people too. It's important, obviously. But the 41-39-20 rule came from the 40-40-20 rule, which says that 40 any direct response campaign, 40%, the success depends 40% on the list or the audience, 40% on the offer, and 20% on the creative or the messaging. And what I learned from Gene, because we're already talking a bit about, I saw this, we start with your headline. Well, you can start with a headline, but you're really starting with research. You're starting with researching your market to get to a headline. And, without research, you're nowhere. I mean, David Ogilvy has a great quote, ignoring research is like, someone who's in a war zone and they're not decoding enemy signals or whatever. I don't have the quote exactly, but it's a great quote. But the idea of researching your market first as the most important thing. And the reason why it's 41-39-20 is the 41 is the list, it's the audience, it's the people. And so and I proved it time and again over my 40-year career, which was that if you have the perfect audience for anything that you're going to sell and you have a mediocre offer and mediocre creative, you'll make some sales. A lot of online marketers make a living doing that. Now, it's not putting your business on steroids. It's not putting it, it's not direct response marketing nirvana, but you can make money. The opposite's not true. If you have like the best creative from the best copywriter who ever lived with a killer offer going to the wrong audience, you get zero orders every time. So knowing that, that's what makes the order very important of 41-39-20 list, offer. And a lot of people think the offer is the most important. Look, it's 41-39. I'm not saying it's an exact science, but I just think that I just want you to think about as we go through today's call, especially as we're talking about the market, that the market, knowing what's out there, you don't have to invent the market. You don't have to create the market. It's out there. How are you going to corral it? And also, when this third bullet, connect to the shared human experience of the people you serve, every copywriter I've ever met, every great copywriter always says something similar to the quote of, you're always writing to one person. Like you always have to think about in your mind, who is and I do it all. I write my blog every Sunday, and there are a few people, I won't mention who they are, from experienced, like total expert to total beginner and someone in between. Usually it's three people that I have in mind that are on my list in my online family. And I think about, will what I'm writing engage them in some way? Because I'm writing to a broader audience. I'm writing about direct response principles through story. But I do think about the exact people you want to think about. And that's why when you have a list or an audience or an online family or whatever you have, always surveying them, always talk, and we'll talk about a lot about that during the boot camp, but knowing what their hopes and desires are, as Chris says. But you have to talk to them. You have to constantly, survey them. You need to understand them. And you don't do it by guessing. They'll tell you. And so I know this sounds kind of obvious, but it's not obvious to a lot of people when they think about Gene Schwartz. They think about him being one of the top copywriters who's ever lived. And Gene is the first one that says it's all about the audience. It's not about the writing. The writing's important. So, and one other thing about the 41-39-20 rule, if you don't have my book, and that's fine, I just want to make a point here that it's not that the 20%, which is the creative, is half as important as the 39 or the 41. It looks like it by the way the 41-39-20 rule is structured. But actually, the creative and the messaging, as you'll learn through this boot camp, because we're going to get into the copy, obviously, because Gene was a copywriter, is that the copy is the least important until it's not. And so what I mean by that is once you have your audience dialed in and your offer dialed in, the messaging and the copy becomes the most important. And I proved that during my 40 plus year career because every major breakthrough I've ever had in any campaign, and I've done thousands of campaigns in my career, every single one had the biggest lifts were based on creative. The biggest lifts. I got lifts from doing things with the lists, segmentation. I got lifts from doing things with the offer, premiums, bonuses, pricing. You get lifts. You get, 10, 15, 20% lifts. But when I got 100% lifts in response and profit, it was all because of the creative. But it was because the creative was built on the list and the offer. I hope I'm not confusing anybody with this. For me, it's like breathing air. And it's so obvious that this is the way to look at marketing. It's a three-legged stool, and it's not that complicated. It's complicated in each element. I mean, when you say list, offer, creative, each one is complicated. But if you look at it as a whole, I've tried to simplify it a little bit here, and it is simple. It's profound in its simplicity, actually. But I think it's important. It's an important concept to bring up. And again, I didn't invent the 40-40-20 rule. I did kind of invent the 41-39-20 rule, but it's not an invention. It's just a variation. But it's a variation based on what I learned from Gene.
Thanks, Brian. And so over here, there we go. So I just want to go over the next 2 weeks, what this schedule is going to be like. So this is us today, call one, understanding mass desire. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about how do we channel that desire. So today is just how do you identify and start to think about mass desire. Tomorrow is once you've identified it, what the dominant desire is in the market, how do you then channel it? And it'll become hopefully obvious why we separated these two. Then on our third call on the 9th, this time is wrong. I just realized. So these are all at 11 a.m. We're going to talk about states of awareness. The fourth call, which gets us into next week, is call on market sophistication. We're going to have a 2-hour office hours call where you can, bring the things you've been working on in this boot camp or things that you've been working on, prior to the boot camp to get the genius of the group is what we say in Titans Accelerator. So this would be kind of like a mini hot seats where you can get rapid fire feedback from me, Brian, anybody else in the group who's got insight to share with you. And then our last call, which this date may change, we'll let you know. So we might have to push this from May 16th to the following Monday, but stay tuned on that. But our last call, we're gonna look at how Gene structured his writing days. Like how did he work? And so we've got a portion of a video of him talking about that we'll share with you.
Reiterate. So call 3 is at 11 o'clock, right?
Yeah, call 3 is at 11
Yeah,
o'clock.
they're all at 11 o'clock. And
Yeah.
the call 6 on the 16th is my fault. That was how it was set up. um, to be at 11 o'clock on Friday the 16th. But I have a very important I don't want to get into the details, but it's something very personal and I have to take care of it. And I want to be there for the last call. So hopefully you'll accommodate me by moving that to Monday the 19th. And that call is a fantastic call. It really is, really getting into Gene's head and mind and how he works. So I don't want to lose the sixth call because I can't be there, but I want to be there for it. So selfishly, I'm going to ask Chris to move that Friday call to the following Monday. Hope that doesn't disrupt anybody's schedule because we did give you the schedule in advance. So I apologize for that. And it is a very important thing that I need to take care of. So just bear with me on that. Hopefully, you'll oblige me and you'll be there for the sixth call on the 19th, also at 11 o'clock, right, Chris?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we'll send this out in an email. We'll repeat the whole schedule so you can plug it in because I know you already plugged it in and I apologize for that. And definitely that call three on the 9th is at 11 o'clock. So
Yep.
every call is at 11. And then talk
Yeah.
about the bonus call seven, Chris.
Yeah, so Titans Accelerator, we mentioned earlier. So we're inviting you guys to come and attend just as a free bonus. It's a 2 hour call, and our guests this week, we've got a really all-star lineup on this call. So Mario Castelli and Luke Mills, they run Copy Coders. Worked with Stefan Georgi and others quite a bit, and then David Deutsch and John Carlton, two A-list copywriters, both worked with Brian. David's a close personal friend, but this is kind of an example of what happens on Titans Accelerator calls. It's everybody getting to benefit from these really profound relationships that Brian developed over 40 plus years of his career, and we get guests like these who we don't pay them. They're not coming to sell. They're just coming to share some insights, and then they take questions from accelerator members. So you guys are getting just a really all-star lineup for this bonus call, and that's on May 16th. It's
May
at 11.
15th. May 15th.
Oh, May 15th. Sorry, I
Yeah,
need to update
it's a
that
week.
too.
It's a week from this Thursday.
Oh, May 15th. I was looking at the wrong bullet. Yeah, May 15th.
And that
Uh,
one, it just so happened it fell into place. We had this call set up, and I said, "Wow, this is going to come right during the boot camp. Let's give this call away to the boot camp." And this call is one of the. It fell into place. But Mario and Luke are two guys I found who are basically at the cutting edge of AI and copywriting, and so they're NGs, they're new gangsters, NGs. We call them NGs, and and Chris just told me he's signing up for they're doing a workshop coming up, and Chris is paying to be in their workshop, so they're just studs. They are just awesome. And then David Deutsch and John Carlton are OGs. They're original gangsters. And if you haven't heard of David Deutsch and John Carlton, I would say shame on you, but I can't say shame on you because, if you haven't heard of them, you haven't heard of them. But they are both world-class copywriters, bloggers, trainers of copywriters. John was a student of Gary Halbert. Hopefully, you've heard of Gary Halbert. Gary Halbert's in the same genre as Gene Schwartz. So and David Deutsch was a student of Jim Rutz and Clayton Makepeace and just great copywriters of all time. So that's going to be, you know, the boot camp's going to be great without that, but that's just an extra bonus that we lapped onto this. And obviously the accelerators are going to be there anyway, but those of you in the boot camp really try to be there. I think it's going to be basically every Titans Accelerator call, we talk about it being the best call ever because it's the one that's now, it's the one that's in the present. That one will be the best Titans Accelerator call ever, I guarantee it. So please be there if you can.
Yeah, and all the calls are recorded except for the bonus call. So for that one, you have to show up live. Obviously, if you're a TXL member, you get that recording. But for you guys in the boot camp, that call won't be part of the recordings that you get. So definitely encourage you to to come and show up live. And then lastly, if you haven't joined the Facebook group for this boot camp, um, then encourage you to do that. If you need the link, somebody can drop it in the chat or just reach out to me, because that's where we're going to be doing a lot of, in between conversations. The recordings are going to be posted there. Um, at the end of this boot camp, that Facebook group will go away, but we'll take all the recordings and we'll put it into a portal that you can log into and access. And we won't close the Facebook group until we've made sure that everybody has been able to access the recording. So just want to give you a heads up on that, about how that process works. So there are going to be assignments. And so this is a working group. This is not anything that's done for you. We're doing this alongside you. We've kept the assignment short, 15, 20 minutes. You can certainly work longer if you want, but we just think that anybody can do anything for 15 to 20 minutes, just so you can at least feel what it's like to implement this process. And then, asking questions inside the group, remembering that it's all about progress, not perfection. It's just there's a benefit of just going through the exercises and almost building like a muscle memory. And so I want to share this, because this may be kind of what it feels like initially, on the first call or two, because we're taking each piece of this method of Gene's system, and we're breaking it down on individual calls instead of trying to go through everything in one really long, several hours long call. So I promise you, at the end, it's all going to come together and make sense for you. Um, Doing things individually like this, you may have a feeling of, how does this all fit together? So I just want to acknowledge that and ask for you to trust us as we go through this process. This is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I heard Navy SEAL Robert O'Neill say this in an interview once, that when they're in the Navy SEAL training, this is one of the things that they're taught, as you're moving through dangerous environments, clearing rooms. They have the saying of, you want to go and get it done fast, I know, but the way to move fast is to actually go slow. And because especially in that line of work, it's one mistake and maybe that's all you get. But I thought that was a really cool phrase, and it fit with what we're doing in the boot camp. So I like to share that concept with you here. So,
Chris,
um,
there was something in the chat about some people aren't on Facebook and they're not going to join the Facebook group. You'll
okay.
be sending the homework, the worksheets, everything through email as well as through the Facebook group. Is that correct?
Yeah, what I would say is, if you're not on Facebook, I do have a workaround for that. So when I send the email out, everything will be in the Facebook group. Reply to me and let me know, and I can share it with you. So we've dealt with that
Okay.
in
So I
the
want to make
past.
sure
So
everybody gets the homework, the
yeah,
worksheets, everything, and we don't want Facebook to be a barrier.
yeah, absolutely. That's not a problem. So copy isn't written; it's a symbol. This is something that Gene said multiple times. You'll hear it on the video that we talk about, and or that we share on the last call. And when I first heard this, it brought to mind this idea of building a copy assembly line. And so that's sort of the framework that we'll be using throughout the boot camp. So the copy assembly line is simply this process. So you start with, what's the mass desire that creates your market? How can I direct that desire toward my solution? And then how much does my market know about the desires that they have, and who else is marketing to them? So if you're familiar with the book, it's mass desires, number one. Then we're talking about channeling that desire. How much does your market know about their desires? That gets us into states of awareness. And then who else is marketing to them? That's all about market sophistication. And so this is the flow that we're going to go through. All right. So how do you start to think about creating your breakthrough headline? As Brian said, it starts with research, and that's what we're about to dive into. But before you can ever come up with a headline that's gonna really connect with your audience and the ad and all that, all the things that we think about when we think about building out an ad campaign. You have to know like how to assess, how to think about the problem that you're solving for your market. And the tools like AI make this allow us to go a lot faster now, which is pretty cool. But I do think it's important to understand like how a great headline happens. Um, because you have to also judge and assess the output that ChatGPT or Claude, whatever you use for AI, what it's spitting back out to you. So you have to be the expert in the market and understand, what the market needs to hear and understand to become interested in the thing that you're offering. And so one of the things that Gene says early on in the book is that if you think about your headline really just has one job, and that job is to stop the prospect and compel them to read the second sentence of your ad. And if you keep going with that, the job of the second sentence is to get them to read the third sentence. So it really kind of breaks it down into what the job of, if you think about building out an ad or a sales letter. I think it's a cool way to think about it, of like each sentence should be strong and compelling enough that somebody wants to read the next sentence, and so on and so forth, until they finally understand the argument that you're making and decide that, yeah, this makes sense. I want to make a purchase, or I want to opt into this thing. This is David Deutsch. I thought that I'm not going to read all of this, but basically, I saw this tweet that he posted not long ago, and the purpose of the headline is not to sell or tell the whole story or make the biggest possible claim. You just want to capture the attention and get them to continue. And so I think that's a really helpful way to a helpful frame to have as we're diving into this. This is what Brian was talking about earlier, of the three-legged stool, where the list is the most important. So I won't revisit all that because Brian gave a really great explanation. And then I like to share this this little meme that I found, where it just kind of speaks to like if you set up in front of a hungry audience, you're going to make some sales, and you don't need a big fancy ad campaign, although it can't hurt. So one of the things that Gene says in the introduction of Breakthrough Advertising is that this is not a book about how to be a better copywriter. He really talks about this idea of becoming a market maker, and he says this is a book that teaches you how to develop markets. And I think that when you understand how to assess a market and identify the desires that make up that market, and the strongest desire that you can then channel towards your offer, it's just a different way to approach selling, whether it's online or whether it's print. It doesn't matter. This is like a global concept of what it means to be a market maker, and I think it's just a really helpful frame as we're diving in. And we're going to do that right now. So I want to start with what Gene says about mass desire on page 3. And I'll read this verbatim. So it says, mass desire is the force from the market that makes advertising work. Copy cannot create desire for a product. It can only take the hopes, dreams, fears, and desires that already exist and focus them onto a particular product. And when I first read this, it's on the very first page of the book. It was a huge light bulb moment for me early in my marketing career, because I did think about marketing as I have to manufacture desire in somebody. Like that's what good marketing does. But this kind of flipped it and changed the job of what my creative is supposed to do. It was no longer about making people desire something. It was recognizing they've already got it. They already have the desire, even if they're not aware of it. And all I'm doing as the marketer is sort of waking that up in them and getting them to give me some of their attention, and hopefully not waste that attention, once it's given. So a few other things that Gene says is directly from the book. He calls mass desire, it's the public spread of a private want, and that our job as marketers we're directing the desire. We're not creating it. And there are tons of desires. Like everybody's got desires. And what we're doing is marketers, we're bringing awareness to how exactly our products fulfill the desires that are pre-existing. And one of the things that when you get into thinking this way and going through this process is that you realize, well, my product, it can actually appeal to multiple desires. But what Gene says is that what you want to do is identify the desire that's dominant, that's strongest. And he's going to give us three different dimensions on how to figure out like what is the strongest, most dominant desire. You're going to learn that on this call. On page 5, Gene says that these mass desires are shared by millions of people and they take years to develop. And they're created by social, economic, technological forces that are far greater than advertising itself can command. And this is, I think, one of the reasons that, paying attention to what's going on in the world, even outside of your niche, like just knowing what are the different forces that are coming into contact with people in your market, that might impact the things that they're wanting to achieve in their life. This goes back to kind of Brian's idea of marketing by walking around. And I came up with this visual that for me at least helps illustrate desire. Maybe it's helpful for you too. But if you think of desire in the market like a river, like this river here, a river is something that is none of us created them. They're here already. They're moving on their own inertia, their own force. And so if you think of desire in the market like this river, then what we're really trying to do is we're trying to, dig like a little trench off to the side where we can redirect some of that flow towards our offer. And that's this idea of channeling this pre-existing desire towards the thing that we're selling that's going to help alleviate the pain or satisfy the desire that somebody has. And so for me, this is a really helpful way to think about what Gene is saying in the book, and really define like what our job is as a marketer, as a business owner, and how we show up to help the people that we want to serve. And if that all sounds I don't know, maybe too big in terms of like, well, gosh, there's so many desires in the market. Like, how am I going to figure out what the specific desire is in my market? Generally, most of us, now you may be an exception to this rule, but generally speaking, most of us are selling in one of three categories. So we're either sort of a really high level, we're addressing people's desires for better health or their desire for greater status, which can be, money, wealth. They want to impress other people, or they want better relationships. So generally speaking, most of us are selling to one of these sort of bigger global desires. And as you start to think about, the reasons that people are motivated to not just buy, but also just achieve sort of a different state or status for themselves. This is something I heard Jeff Walker say once. I thought it was really great. He said that people they don't only buy what your product does, they're buying who your product helps them become. So they're actually looking for a transformation. So you can think of anybody that you sell to, there's a before state, where they are now. And then there's an after state that they're trying to get to that hopefully what they're wanting is that when they buy something from you, that they're able to either fully achieve that after state or move closer to being the person that they have in mind, even if they're not fully aware of what that is. But I think this is a helpful frame as well of thinking in terms of like who does somebody become when they make a purchase from me? You'll see this question come up here in a little bit as well, but people are looking for a transformation. So I'll give you an example of sort of what this looks like sort of in real life. So if you were to go out and speak with your market. You know, they might tell you something. Let's say you're in the weight loss niche. So they might say, "Hey, I've got this desire. I want to lose weight." Right? Now, I would say that's a very surface level desire. It's a true statement. They want to lose weight. But the thing that they're not telling you is that really the thing that's driving me here is I'm really ashamed, and I'm terrified that if I don't lose this weight, that I'm never going to find somebody. Nobody's going to love me. And that's it. That's really the thing that if your marketing speaks to that underlying feeling that in this case they're ashamed, they're afraid. Speaking to that versus just saying I've got something to help you lose weight, you'll find is a much more powerful connection to the market, and it makes you stand out because you're somebody showing up that understands the deeper pain, and you're giving words to something that they feel but can't fully express. Another example is somebody would say, "Well, I want to make more money. You know, I want to make more money." Well, the thing that maybe they won't tell you is, "Well, I've been trying to do this for a while, but I don't really feel worthy of making a lot of money." And this becomes the real pain point. And all this stuff comes up through your research, which we're going to show you here in just a second. But speaking to somebody who wants to make more money, but the thing holding them back is they don't feel worthy of making money. Speaking to that pain point is going to be much more powerful and different from other people in the market when you know that about the people that you're trying to serve. And then one last one here. Somebody would say, I want to meet somebody, I want to fall in love. Like that's really what I want. It's going to make me happy. But the thing that they won't tell you is that past relationships, I end up self-sabotaging them, and I don't really know how to stop. And so there is kind of baked into these feelings. There's feelings of shame, maybe some guilt. You know, people. It's not comfortable to practice this kind of self-awareness where you're really trying to get below the surface, personally speaking, to get below the surface of why you want to achieve the things that you do. And so great marketing understands that and knows that about the market and speaks directly to those pain points. And that's where you have the feeling of like, oh, this person, they get it. Like this piece of marketing, this ad that I just read, like they understand me better than this other ad I just saw, or even better than I understand myself. And they're probably the one who can help me achieve my goals. And it's a fair question if you're thinking, okay, how in the world do I find out what somebody's not telling me? I can't go out and interview everybody. And so this is where we get into research, and there's really just no way around having to do research on your market. I mean, you can get lucky and you can put a piece of copy together and it can do well, especially if you're going like to a warm list or something. But digging in and understanding like the voice of the market, like what they're actually saying, and learning how to synthesize that. And with AI, it's so much faster now. But I just want to give you a list of places that you can go to do research, and then I'm going to show you a prompt that you can use inside of all the different deep research AI tools that actually helps you do that much faster, synthesize the voice of the customer. So
and also you're going to be giving out worksheets that will work them through this part of the homework. So I just want to spoiler alert on that, but
yeah, that's right. So I'll list these out quickly. I love searching inside of Facebook groups. So if you're ever, you, there's so much gold inside of Facebook groups around a specific problem area. I've researched people who are dealing with dry eyes, brain fog. There are all these Facebook groups for all these different types of conditions in the health space, but also in the financial and wealth space. I mean, if you just put your put your market inside of Facebook and search for groups, join those groups so you can just see what people are posting. about dealing with, whatever problem they're dealing with. I love looking at the Google Keyword Planner because I like to see like what people are searching, because that can kind of give you ideas on what their intent is. Answer the Public is a great resource looking at Amazon 1 and 5 star reviews. And now you can take all those, you can put them into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze the sentiment, find common phrases that people are using. You got sites like Quora. ClickBank is another one. It's not as popular maybe as it used to be, but that's a good resource to go and just see like what are the top performing products in a given niche on ClickBank, because that will tell you like what people are buying, what they're responding to. Surveying your list, interviewing the people on your list. And then what we're going to talk about now is AI Deep Research, which came out a few months ago. And those are tools like Perplexity AI, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok on the X platform. And sort of uh, I guess the stance that I would say we're taking when we're doing our research is we're like a doctor and we're trying to diagnose the real problem. So we've got the problem that maybe we hear about in some of our research, that people that surface level stuff. Um, but what we're trying to do is get below the surface and really diagnose like what is really going on here? What's really driving this desire for losing weight or making more money, whatever it is. And and so what I want to share now is how to do this even faster with AI. At the end of this, I'm going to take you through. Uh, I'm working on something in the pet market for dogs who have torn their ACL, because my dog Hank 2 weeks ago tore his ACL, and so I got really interested in this market, and I found that there are so many people searching for alternatives to surgery because surgery is super expensive. I'll get more into that in a second, but I've been using Perplexity. It's sort of my research tool of choice. Um, but I just haven't played around that much with the Chat GPT deep research. But Perplexity's kind of been in the research space for really since they launched. Like this is what they do. So I've got a really long prompt. I'm not going to read it to you. You're going to get this, but I just want to help you kind of see how this can work to get voice of the customer data. So you're starting with giving it uh, a persona. So you're telling Perplexity. You can use this in any of the other tools as well. But you're a customer research assistant, and then you're telling it, I want you to go into Reddit threads, forums, Amazon, Quora, and then you give it a little bit of info about you and your business. So here's my market, here's the niche, here's the product or offer that I'm wanting to research. For me, for example, I was doing research around dog knee braces. Um, and then it continues that I want you to go out to these sites. I want you to look for relevant conversations. I want you to pull quotes and summaries from real users. I don't want you to go into blog posts or anything like that. Like I want comments on videos or Amazon or whatever it is. And I want you to pull those. I want you to give me the source link to where these conversations are happening. I want you to tell me the pain and the emotional language that's being used, and put it all together for me. And then the last part of this is I want you to start analyzing and putting together similar pain points and desires and ranking them based on emotional intensity. And so I know these are three slides for you guys, but the intent would be to combine them all together into one long prompt, put this into your research tool. And what that's going to give you back is something you would use for what I call, this is your voice of the customer research document. And then you take that document, you upload it into something like ChatGPT or again whatever your AI tool of choice is, and then you're going to use the next prompt that I'll give you here on Mass Desire at the end of this. But I wanted to share this with you. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys use this and giving us feedback on how this works for you. And again, I'm going to show you what it's producing for me on this dog market that I'm currently researching. So,
Chris, before I leave, I have to go
yeah.
for today's call. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Anybody has any questions for me, just hold them till tomorrow. But there's a bunch of stuff in the chat that I want you to grab after the call, Chris. because
Okay.
folks are chiming in with their own tools, which happens in every boot camp.
Yep.
And then we add them to the list. So Lori talks about a Chrome extension called Helium. Um,
Hmm.
um, Gullitham says Shulex is great at exporting Amazon reviews. Um, Mensah says Gemini Deep Research. And then someone else chimed in that Gemini 2.5 is really good. So and Perplexity is the leader. So you're on target, Chris, but you inspired a whole bunch of other ideas, and we need to add those to the boot camp, which is exactly what we want to do here. So keep putting your stuff in the chat, everybody. Chris won't get to it right away, but we'll get to it maybe before the end of this boot camp when we go to office hours. So just make sure I know you'll grab the chat and you'll take care of that, Chris. I just want you
Hmm.
to be aware of what was going on there because there's a
Oh,
lot of
awesome.
action there and a lot of really good ideas. There's Storm for research. Yeah, there's some really good stuff in there. So thank you everybody for
Yeah.
all of that. That was wonderful. Chris, you inspired even more genius, so that's great.
I love it. That on that particular slide, that always tends to happen. And
Always.
I'm excited to get back into the chat because I love learning about new AI tools
You know,
and checking them
68
out.
people on the call with their own hacks and their own
Yeah.
stuff. It's like it's exponential. So that, I mean, we're selfish. We're going to grab everything that you gave us and then use it in this boot camp and beyond. And we're going to use it in our business too. So,
Yeah.
we're going to be real. We're going to just steal everything you just gave us. So, um,
So
yeah.
I want to keep going on this track. So the idea is, you've done your research, you've got this better understanding of your market, and now what we need to do is kind of start digging below the surface, and we want to start thinking in terms of, what is the motivation behind these different desires. And so we're going to share two methods that we put together for you that we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on, and so, yeah, I'm going to dive into it right now. And the first method to dig deeper below what people are telling you their desire is it's called the "so I can" ladder. So we take the desire statement and we add the words "so I can" to the end of every statement of desire until we get to the heart of what's really driving somebody to want a specific transformation. So I'll show you an example of this. So if we take, a surface level desire of I want to lose weight, and we add "so I can." So you would say, I want to lose weight so I can fit into the new clothes that I bought. And with this method, you keep going deeper with each statement. So you would add "so I can" to this one. So I want to fit into the new clothes I just bought so I can stop being embarrassed when I look in the mirror. And then you keep digging deeper. You say, well, why does that matter? Like, why is that important to you that you want to look, not be embarrassed when you look in the mirror? Well, I want to feel confident when I walk out of my home. And you keep going. Well, why is that important? Why does that matter? Because I want to become someone who is secure and confident because I'm not that right now, right? That's why I want to lose the weight. Well, why does that matter? Why is that important? Because I want to create a better, happier life for myself. And you keep going. Why does that matter? Why do you want to create a better, happier life for yourself? So ultimately, I want to live life to the fullest, which I don't feel like I'm doing now. And ultimately, I want to die without regrets. So you can see sort of through as you do your research into the market, you get the voice of the customer. You've got the surface level of like, I want to lose weight, but it's much more powerful if you know what's driving somebody to want that thing. And we're constantly asking, like, who will you become if you lose the weight you want to lose? Like, what's that transformation like for you? Like, what's the before and after? That's what we want to know through our research. We'll take another example. I want to improve my flexibility. Very surface level desire. Well, why do you want to do that? So I can reduce the pain that I feel in my lower back. A little better, it's still kind of surfacey. Well, why do you want to reduce the pain you feel in your lower back? So I can bend down to pick up my kids without fear of pulling my back out. Now we're getting somewhere a little bit deeper. Why is that important to you? Why do you want to be able to pick up your kids because I want to be able to show affection to them whenever they need it. Awesome. Why does that matter to you? So I can be the kind of parent to them that I want to be. Great. Why does that matter? Why is that important? So I can do a better job than my parents did with me, and they were never there for me. So you can kind of see, that the things that drive us for wanting to make improvements in our life, oftentimes they're much deeper reasons for why we want to do these things. And coming up with these answers, first of all, the research prompt that I just gave you is going to be a huge help in doing this. But also the mass desire prompt that we're going to get to in just a second is going to be another way, because it's actually going to synthesize and go through the voice of the customer document that you put together. But it's still, coming up with these answers, still this combination of market research and I like to say a little bit of method acting. So if you're not familiar with method actors, they take on the persona of the character that they're playing. And, if you've ever seen Man on the Moon, Jim Carrey, who played Andy Kaufman, there's a great documentary about this. And he took on the persona of Andy Kaufman and would not even reply if somebody said, hey, Jim. He wouldn't even reply because he was, even when they weren't shooting, he was Andy Kaufman. And I think that's a interesting. I'm not saying you have to, if somebody calls you by your name, not to reply, but I think there's a lesson in that for us to really learn and practice empathy for our market. So if you're selling a diabetes solution, even if you don't have diabetes, you can imagine like what it must feel like to be somebody with type 2 or type 1 diabetes and just put yourself in their place. Because again, going back to human experience, like we all know what it's like to have human emotions of sadness and shame and guilt and fear and even gladness. Like we all know what that's like to experience those. And so we can draw on our experiences to imagine, well, how painful might this be for my prospect, for my customers. So that's the first method, the So I Can ladder. The second method comes from a friend of ours, Michael Fishman. He shared this. We borrowed it from him, thought it was great. But we asked, what will they tell me? What won't they tell? And what can't they tell? And I'll start with the example that Michael gives. Somebody who says, I need to fix a small leak somewhere in my basement. The thing that they'll tell you is that I've got water leaking in my basement. The thing that they, won't tell you is that my house is starting to smell. And the thing that they can't tell you is my home is a reflection of me, and I'm starting to get embarrassed to have people over. Another example of this in the weight loss space. So I want to lose weight. The thing that they'll probably tell you is, I've tried every diet imaginable over the last 2 years. None of them work. The thing they won't tell you is that, I usually give up about halfway through the second month. And then the thing that they can't tell you, I can't tell you I'm constantly self-sabotaging because ultimately I don't really value myself and I don't even realize that I do this. And I think that, a lot of times that the reason that people can't tell us things is they don't even know. They're not aware of what's really driving their desires. But they also just might feel ashamed, and ashamed of their situation. And their shame is stronger than their ability to communicate the truth about where they are. So this is just another helpful method. This is baked into the prompts that we're going to give you. But I think it's also helpful, I guess now it's old school, but to do these manually and just sit and think on your own without AI. I think that's a good practice as well, because it's a helpful muscle to develop. And so the idea here is all about getting beneath the surface of the desires of our market. And the next step, once we're doing that, we have to then think about what's the dominant desire. So if you remember, I talked about there's the mass desire. It's shared by a whole lot of people, but then Gene says there's a dominant desire that's going to be the most powerful for your marketing, and that's what you want to hone in on. And he gives us a process to figure out how to do that. So not all desires are equal. We want to find the dominant desire. How do we do that? Gene gives us three dimensions that we can think of. So the first dimension, and you kind of overlay this on your mass desires, is you've got urgency, intensity, and degree of demand to be satisfied. So the example that Gene gives in the book is if you imagine somebody who's in constant pain from arthritis versus somebody who wakes up one day and they've got a minor headache. The person with that constant pain, that's a much more urgent problem that they're trying to solve compared to if you're, selling to somebody with a minor headache. So solve urgent problems, put out fires. That's where you're going to have the biggest wins for your marketing. The next dimension, there are three. There's staying power, and this is a desire's ability or inability to be satisfied. And so what you're looking for here is like, does the desire repeat itself? And also, does the market keep replenishing itself? So example here is if you think about raw hunger versus a craving for gourmet foods, there's much more people, many more people who, everybody feels this hunger during the day. And the group of people who want, gourmet foods, that's a much smaller segment. So you're gonna have hunger repeats itself every day. Craving for gourmet foods, not always repeating itself. Sometimes you eat really rich foods and you're like, oh, I'm done with that for a little bit. It tasted amazing, but my stomach didn't really like it. And then you've got scope. So this is the number of people who share the desire. The example Gene gives in the book is the number of people who are willing to pay $10 for a car accessory that saves gas versus those who pay $10 for one that merely prevents future repair bills. There's going to be much more people who would take that first option of like, hey, I'll spend $10 and it's going to save me money on gas. Like, I'm in. Versus, hey, this may prevent future repair bills. He talks about prevention as one of the hardest things to sell. And he actually, I won't go into it, but further in the book, he does say, this is how you sell prevention. And so he gives a specific method on that. But the scope here is just making sure that that the market is big enough for you to go in and actually build a business around. And so as you're digging into these market desires, these are the questions you're asking. You're saying, how urgent is this desire? Does it have staying power? Does it repeat itself? And are more people coming into the market? So once you solve a problem for somebody, maybe they don't need your solution anymore, but are there more people coming into the market who will? I think about people who are looking for ways to pay for college. I've got well, it's not important, but there's people who help parents figure out how to pay for and fund college. That's a market that is constantly replenishing because there's always graduating seniors who are going to want to go to college. So that's a helpful way to think about what staying power is, and then how many people share the desire. So what Gene says is that dominant desires have all three. They're urgent, they have staying power, and they're shared by a lot of people. And so as we're wrapping up, I want to give you an example, a couple of examples of what an ad might look like when it combines the surface level desire with an understanding of the transformation that the market is looking for. And this first one is really timely because Mother's Day is coming up. So this is actually a video, and this book is creating a photo album to give to your mom. And if you were to watch the video, which I'm not playing here, but it's basically a mom getting this book and she's kind of looking through her family's story and grandkids being born, and it's this beautiful thing. And she starts crying. And so they've got this hashtag, make mom cry. When I saw that, I was like, oh, that's like right to the heart of what you want. That's how you gave like a really good Mother's Day gift. So if we were to break this down in terms of like what we're talking about on this session, the mass desire would be like, I need to get mom a gift for Mother's Day, right? That's the mass surface level desire. maybe more dominant desire is I want this to be like the best gift, the most meaningful gift that I've ever given her. And so what what might I know, or how will I know if I've succeeded in that? Well, one of the ways is that if I give it to her and she cries tears of joy, just like these people are doing in the video. And then what does that say about me? Like, how am I going to feel good in this? Well, it says that I'm a really exceptional son or daughter. I may not say that out loud, but you get that feeling of satisfaction of feeling like you actually gave a meaningful gift to your mom. This last ad I want to show you. This is an ad for learning to play guitar. And you can see just from the image, like they're targeting not everybody. They're targeting a specific segment of the market of people who want to learn to play guitar. So mass desire would be, I want to learn to play guitar. A lot of people fall into that. Drilling down below the surface, the dominant desires, well, I want to enjoy making music during retirement before it's too late for me. How will I know if I've succeeded? Well, if I look and feel as happy and content as this guy looks in the image, I'll be pretty happy with that. And then what does the success say about me? Well, one of the things it says that I never stop growing and learning, and I have more that I want to give to the world. So maybe you can imagine somebody who's focused on their career, supporting their family. They always wanted to learn to play guitar, and just never got around to it. And now they're looking at retirement. They've got time, and this ad shows up and speaks, directly to that more dominant desire of what am I going to do during retirement? I've always wanted to learn to play guitar. This is the perfect time, and this looks like the perfect perfect purchase that I can make to achieve that goal. And so then this is setting up for tomorrow. So once you understand the market's dominant desire, how do you channel it towards your product? And that's what we're going to talk about, focus on entirely tomorrow, is taking the mass desire, finding the dominant desire, and then there's a process that Gene gives us to then channel that desire towards your product. And so I want to give you today's assignment, and then I'm going to show you how I'm using this in the dog market with these prompts and AI as well. So the first assignment is we're just focused on getting below the surface. So if you don't already have a market or niche, that's fine. If you've got one in mind or you just want to pick one, just for purposes of this group, highly recommend that so you can go through and do these exercises. So take your market or niche, set a timer for 10 minutes. Again, you can do it longer if you want. We just ask for 10 minutes because we think anybody can do anything in 10 minutes. And just start listing out the desires in your market. List as many as you can think of in 10 minutes. And then you're going to start thinking about the transformations. So this is where you'll start taking those surface desires and saying, like, what was behind those desires. So I want to lose weight so I can, or what will they tell me, what won't they tell me, that type of thing. So this is where you're getting into defining those transformations. And then you're going to score combinations of these across the 3 dimensions. So urgency, staying power, scope of each desire. And this is a worksheet that I'm going to give you. It's just got an example here. So like if you just take, I want to make more money so I can provide a better life for my family, so I can give my kids more opportunities that I didn't have, so I can feel like I'm a good parent. So the way that I find this to be helpful is if you were to say, I want to make more money so I can feel like I'm a good parent. You kind of take that and say, is that an urgent pain to solve? Or is it more urgent to say, I want to make more money because I want to give my kids opportunities that I didn't have? Is that a more urgent desire to focus on? Does it have staying power? Are there other people, once I solve this for one person, are there more people coming into the market that I can help with the same desire, same dominant desire? And then are there enough people who want this? Are there enough people who want to make more money or who want to lose 50 pounds in 6 months so they can achieve all these things? Now, as I said before, this is the first time that we are going to be sharing how to use AI to do this. And so this is a monster prompt. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to show you the output. But essentially, this is where you would take that voice of the customer document from your research that you got from Perplexity or whatever you're using, and you would attach it inside of, say, ChatGPT, for example, and you would enter this prompt, and then you would follow sort of the output you get. And so I do want to take your questions. I know we're up against the clock here, so I just want to share with you what this is looking like for me. So let me, oh Lord, close all that. Okay. So this is in Perplexity. I'm starting with that first prompt that I gave you, the customer research assistant, and I'm telling it my market's dog owners. I'm looking for specifically people who are looking for non-surgical alternatives to their dog's ACL injuries, and I want to know what people are saying about having to deal with knee braces, right? And so then it goes through, and then it gives me all this stuff, right? So it starts pulling out specific quotes. It's linked here, so if I want to go and read these comments, I can. It gives me more voice of the customer information. There's a testimonial on a knee brace, dives into Reddit, YouTube comments, and it's sort of bubbling all these up for me. And what I do, and then it tells me what the pain is. So obviously, surgeries for ACL on dogs, guys, it's expensive. And so so there are a lot of people who don't want to have to pay that if there's an alternative. So anyway, I take all this info. It's a lot of stuff. I copy it. I put it into a document, and I go into ChatGPT. So here's what Perplexity gave me, and I run that prompt, that mass desire prompt that I just gave you. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask me a few questions, and I didn't even give it much, right? So I just said, hey, these are men and women. They're over 35. They love their dog. Would do anything for it, because it's asking me demographics, psychographics, buying behavior, all that good stuff. And I would say, they don't want to have to pay this much for surgery. And they do their research on Google, Facebook, social media, etc. So then it starts taking that document, taking my answers, and sort of breaking down the questions that it asked me, the demographics through product category and everything. Then it starts pulling out, here are the top mass desires, phrase the way your audience might be thinking or saying them. So I just want my dog to walk without pain. I want to feel like I'm doing the right thing for my dog. And then it takes each of these and it starts scoring them across the 3 dimensions, right? So each of these that it gave us to start scoring them. And then it's going to prioritize, and it says, based on the score and alignment with Heal at Home. Oh, I don't know what that is. Here are the top 3. Oh, that's one of the sites it looked. So I just want my dog to walk again without pain. This is emotionally powerful, specific. And then it's going to take you through the things I just showed you, the so I can. All right. So I want my dog to walk without pain, walk again without pain, so I can stop worrying every time they limp. So I can take them on walks again, so I can enjoy time together like we used to. And then it also does the will, won't, can't. What they won't say, I feel like I failed them when they're in pain. My dog is my emotional anchor, and watching them suffer breaks something in me. And then the same thing here, it takes the other desire that scored high and runs it through the same process. It's taking the top, it looks like taking the top 3 and breaking it down. This one I thought was especially powerful here. I'm terrified of making the wrong decision and hurting them more. And that's what I feel right now. It's like, I don't want my dog to be in pain because they can't tell me they're in pain. And so when I read that, I was like, yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. But anyway, I'm going to give you all the slides so you can get all these prompts. You guys, I know, have been posting in the chat with your own tools, and I'm looking forward to learning from you in this as well, because AI is such a new technology. And And then I'm also going to give you this worksheet, which I'll pop this into the chat now so you have it. It'll be interesting to see how this one goes, how this boot camp goes with since so many people are probably going to be using the AI option, but pop that in the chat. And I know we're 5 minutes over. I'm going to stop sharing and happy to have a conversation, take questions, or whatever you like. I'm here for you. Final
Hey,
boss prompt.
Chris.
Awesome.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Thank you for that. That was super helpful. I just have a quick question. So, you know the dimensions, the urgency, the scope, the staying power, is
Mhm.
that just based on the surface level desire, or are you doing those based on the deeper desires?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah, on the um, oh, I see what you're asking. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so the way the exercise works, the ChatGPT kind of took it a different route, but originally the idea was you take the surface level and then combine it with one of the deeper reasons. So like I want to make more money so I can provide a better life for my kids, and I would take
Mm.
that idea, like, is that a strong enough statement to be a dominant desire that I would build, test an ad around and show my offer product as a solution. Like, hey, if you want to provide a better life for your kids financially, um, how am I going to direct that desire to my offer? So I would be scoring based on the combination of one of those. Does that make
And
sense?
how that makes perfect sense. And how are you choosing which? Obviously, you go down 3 layers. How are you choosing which one? Are you choosing like the one that you think is the best and scoring them based on that?
Yeah, I mean it's not an exact science, but it's basically
Mm.
like you're going to learn more about your market than they know about themselves when you're doing your
Yeah.
research. And so you're combining those surface and deeper level desires, and based on what you've discovered through your research, you're then saying, okay, I know this is an urgent problem because I kept seeing comments about, XYZ. I know
Yeah.
that there are plenty of people coming into this market. It's got staying power. So I'm going to score that as a, 4 or 5. Now, the actual score you give it, I mean, that is a little kind of up to you. So like you
Yeah.
get to say if it's a 5 or a 3. So yeah, that part is a little bit of not arbitrary, but it is, use your best judgment. Of course, then, as you just saw with ChatGPT,
Yeah.
it scored it on its own. And you can look at that output. And again, this goes back to like understanding the concepts, because then you have to decide like, do I agree with what ChatGPT said? Maybe I need to go back and
Yeah.
and have it adjust a little better. It didn't give me exactly what I was looking for.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, Chris, I got a
Hey,
question for you.
yeah. So
Great
Wes,
session today, man. Yep.
hey,
So I just want to be clear on my end. So when you're doing the research, right, you're diving in, finding what the customers are saying and how they're describing their own problem. But when you get to the so you can ladder, are you organizing more of what you saw customers say, or are you diving deep and almost kind of not necessarily making it up, but it's almost like an educated guess because you've been in the research, like what
yeah.
could be the deeper meaning of that? And you're kind of coming to that conclusion yourself, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little that's where, if you remember, I was talking about method acting,
Yeah.
because like once
Putting yourself in
you,
their shoes. Okay.
yeah, when you get when you start reading, maybe like Reddit is a great gold mine, or Facebook groups, like I mentioned before, but
Yeah.
you start paying attention to like how people are talking about the problem that they're facing. Like this dry eye group that I'm in, like that is a super painful thing for people to deal with, and I had no idea, but like having dry eyes. And if I was selling a product, I was researching for an optometrist. That's why I was in there, but I'm not doing that anymore. But if I was selling a product like for solving dry eyes, then I'm going to know that market way better than they know themselves, because they're
Yeah.
just paying attention to their situation, and I'm looking at everybody. And so it's a little bit of a mix of you're going to start to um, understand and take on the voice of the people you're trying to help. So you're going to develop your own knowledge because you're connecting dots that they're not. But then you might come across a comment that's just really poignant, and you're like, oh wow, this person, like, they just succinctly said it, and so you can move that into your so I can ladder, um, kind of thing. So I think it's a little bit of both. I wouldn't say you want to make stuff up, but it needs to be informed
Yeah.
by the voice of the customer.
Okay. So would you say, because I know Facebook groups, for sure, but would you say Reddit is still a good source if your
Oh
market
yeah,
is more on the B2B kind of high ticket,
yeah.
expert space than
Reddit's a
Reddit too?
great a great tool. There in the last boot camp, I took this out. I'll share it with you guys. But there is a tool called Gummy Search, um, that just focuses on Reddit. I don't know that it's necessarily needed anymore as deep research has come out, because I think ChatGPT and Perplexity and those tools can achieve the same thing, um, and go and crawl and pull out conversations and synthesize it for you, in Reddit. But yeah, Reddit's a great source because you can dive deep into all the different subreddits.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
I have a quick question. When you're doing your research now, like as a professional, are you actually going through and doing these exercises first, or do you just dive right into AI and start to see where that lines up with kind of your mental internal analysis?
Well, I mean, a lot of the work that I do now is kind of in the business education, and so because I've been in that space for so long, I've developed my own knowledge and experience of selling and talking with customers. Um, but let's see. But you take like this dog example I was just given. Like, I've never sold to the pet market, and so the way I'm doing that now is I'm relying on uh, the deep research from the AI tools to go out and find what people are saying. Now, I guess in that scenario, because I do have a dog with an ACL injury, I'm researching as a customer, so maybe that's not a completely fair statement to say I'm totally cold to it. But I think probably um, the core of your question is where do you start? And I find that I always I start. It helps me to have something to react to, and so I'll go and start my research with a ChatGPT or Perplexity, and I'll just start talking to it, and I'll say, what are people saying about X, Y, and Z, or I'll use this prompt I just gave you to get the voice of the customer, and then I kind of just scroll through it and see what sticks out to me, like what catches my attention, that will be a comment that somebody left on a YouTube video, in that document that Perplexity gives, and from there maybe I'll see something I hadn't thought of before, and I'll ask it. I'll say, hey, this person said X, Y, Z. Like, is that a common issue that people deal with when they're trying to lose weight or solve their dog's ACL injury without surgery. So I think directly to answer your question is I do start now with researching on AI just because I like to have something to react to, and then it's a little more fluid and organic for me from there. Does that answer your question, or
Yeah, no, perfectly. Because I just see that. I think that's what I would want to start, because it gives you basically somebody to start bouncing ideas off of.
Yeah,
And then it's easier to talk through it versus just sit there and do a mental exercise and guess.
that's right. Yeah, I find that to be true as well. Like, it's just getting it just allows you AI just allows you to move a lot faster. So I mean, why not?
Chris, should we be worried about phrasing these benefits or these desires in the affirmative versus the negative, or is the point to figure out which way the market phrases it?
So it'd be like, I want to achieve X versus like I don't want to have this happen.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I mean, I think there's usually a correlation between those two. So for every, positive statement there, you can rephrase it as a negative. And I've never thought about that, David, like specifically, in terms of like as the way that I practice. I think that's an interesting idea. Like, I could see like if you started with a positive statement and then you say, all right, well, what is the thing that they're actually wanting to avoid? Like, what's the negative side of that? I could see that sort of creating some light bulb moments of thinking of the problem and how to solve it in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm thinking of your example. Like, I doubt people with dry eye walk around thinking about how they want their eyes to feel more lubricated. You know,
Right.
they probably want the dryness to go away, but
That's right.
they might also say in the affirmative, like, I just want to feel better already.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe will the exercise give me the opportunity to just list them both ways? I'm assuming yes, right?
Yeah.
I can just try every possibility.
Yeah. And
All right.
yeah, whether you do it manually or use AI, like AI is great because you're just opening a conversation. So you can take the output from AI and say, okay, now restate this in a negative frame, like as the thing they want to avoid.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Somebody sent me a private message earlier. Oh, Jeff. I don't know if he's still on, but the recordings. He was asking about the recording, so I'm going to share all that. Should be before the end of the day today. So this recording will stop. We'll get it processed, and then we'll plug it into the Facebook group. Those of you who don't use Facebook, totally fine. When I send out that email, um, telling everybody it's in the Facebook group, just reply to that and let me know, and I can link direct. I keep these in Dropbox, so I can link you to the Dropbox, if that's easier. Oh, yeah, you're welcome, Jeff.
Chris, I just have a question before you leave.
Mhm.
I'll probably be doing this exercise for like the B2B kind of SaaS side, and I
Yeah.
wanted to get your opinion on, because obviously they're kind of a more sophisticated market, and I mean that in terms of just the kind of people and the way they speak in a corporate,
Mm.
setting. And I wanted to know, would you still advise that I go as deep, or like where's the kind of cut-off point in terms of people's desires? And because it's like, yeah, I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, the B2B is interesting because a lot of times the people you're selling to, I mean, a lot of the core desire is like, I don't want to recommend something that's going to make me look bad. Or I don't want to bring on a vendor, and because they're, especially if they're not the ultimate decision maker, or even if they are,
Yeah,
like they've still got a boss, they don't want to lose their job. So there is always, I think, in the B2B space, depending on the size of the company, somebody at a larger company, their sort of their status and how they appear to their bosses and everything, and their coworkers, like that's something that I think is just always there, uh, as an undercurrent. So I think the way I would approach that is, um, you know, making sure that it becomes like how can you communicate that you are a safe choice, and you want to lead them
yeah,
on like baby steps, like, hey, you don't have to make a buying decision now, but let me get you to just take this next baby step so I can show you, maybe through a demo, maybe
yeah,
opting in for a training webinar you're putting on, where you can get them more captive, and it's a little bit longer form. So I do recognize that's a little bit of a different audience in terms of they've got some unique desires that you've got to be aware of. But I think that it all still works and applies inside of these exercises. And I'd be really curious to see what, like how Perplexity or ChatGPT or whatever you use, ho-
yeah,
how
yeah,
how it comes up with recommendations
yeah, because
for
that's
you.
something I wanted to ask you as well. Like, for that kind of an audience, would you still recommend I go to like Reddit, or is there any kind of, for these kind of people, would you recommend a different kind of avenue I take when I'm looking for research?
I mean, if it were me, I'd probably go to something like Perplexity and I would say, I've got this solution selling to these types of companies, this many employees in this market. Um, and then I would say, what are some places online where I can research and find the voice of the customer and then have it go out and
Okay.
do the research and say, oh, you should check out, the G2 site where people are reviewing different softwares and comparing them to other people or to other companies or maybe on LinkedIn. So that's the way I would do it is I would just, if I didn't know where to look, I would start by saying, hey, AI, tell me, help me find places to look. And then I would build that list and put those sites into the prompt that I gave you.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Cool.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Eddie.
Hey,
Really
Eddie.
quick. First of all, great session. I appreciate everything you're talking about, and especially how you're incorporating AI into the research process. I'm wondering- Sorry, that was me. My bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to the limitations of AI in regards to this process. So, in other words, like where does AI fall short, and where does the human element come into play, and how can we as copywriters kind of pick up that slack?
Well, I mean, in the research phase, that's why in that prompt, like I want whatever comment or whatever it is, there's a link so I can go see it for myself. As you saw in Perplexity, like I was saying, this person said this, and then there's a link because I do know that AI can manufacture things that aren't real. It's getting better at that. Um, but I want to be able to trust the research output so that then when I take it into ChatGPT, I'm like, I know that I'm giving it voice of customer data that that I've been able to verify and vet. Um, and then I'm going to get my output from ChatGPT, and then inside that output is where I'm looking for hallucinations and I'm looking for things that um, maybe maybe just seem to come out of nowhere based on my own understanding of the market. So I really do treat it like a junior copywriter. So I never take whatever AI gives me and just run with it. It's well, um, both from the ideas it gives me, but also just the copy that that it gives. Like it's getting better and better for sure. And I've seen that as I've been using it now for, I mean, I think I signed up for ChatGPT as soon as it came out. So it's definitely getting better but it's still got those common phrases that it uses that, I keep trying to train it to not use or different sentence structures. So, I mean, I just think our role as marketers with working with AI is just think about this is an employee that you hired to help you. And it's entry or junior level employee and you've got to check their work because um, you're the human, you're the expert. Like
The purveyor
you
of
you have the human experience and AI it doesn't, I guess.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Cool. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate you guys staying a little bit longer. And tomorrow our call is on channeling the desire, which is a great call, super tactical. And I've got more AI goodies for you there. It's 11 a.m. tomorrow. I'll get this recording out today. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you got questions. Happy to help. You can tag me in the Facebook group as well if you're there. But appreciate everybody.
Outstanding. Thank you.